Les Cahiers d'Esther, or Esther's Notebooks. Histoire de mes 10 ans, or Tales from my 10-year-old life. So this is a series of books originally written in French, but most of my family doesn't understand any French, so we're starting to collect them in English as well. These are cartoons, they're graphic, and the principle is pretty simple. The cartoonist, Riyad Sattouf, has a friend who has a daughter, and he speaks to her about her life, and at least that's what he says, is that every page is a week of him talking to her. There are 52 pages per book, so each book makes up a year of her life. And he says that he doesn't change anything from what she says. What she says is what he puts in there. But of course, he has to make decisions as far as which of the many things she says happened in the week or that she wants to talk about during the week. He puts in the book, and of course, he decides how to draw everything. Now that I've said what it is, and there's one for each year, I'll tell you that it is much more interesting and fun and also deep and sometimes upsetting than it sounds. So this story of a 10-year-old girl, she's telling you things that happened in her life, and sometimes she gets things wrong. She doesn't really know what she's talking about half the time. When she talks about the world, she hears things and then she reports them, and the cartoonist puts them in the book. So sometimes she gets things wrong about racism or sexism or politics or just sort of what's happening. She tells you what she knows, but sometimes she doesn't really know what's going on. And then later on, what's interesting is it's kind of funny because she'll say something here, and then 2 years later, she'll go back and tell you, oh, actually, when I saw that, I actually was thinking about this or something, and she'll tell you what was actually happening at that time, but she didn't want to admit it when she was 10 or something like that. Sattouf has said that he's going to do one a year until she is 18. So far there are 6 volumes. Goes from her years as a 10-year-old, her year as a 10-year-old to her 15th year. And I don't know, the next volume will come out soon, and then every year there's another volume until she's 18. These are a huge hit in France. They're very, very well known, very popular, and for a reason. Sattouf has also done the Arab of the Future series, L'Arabe du Futur, and some others, but particularly the Arab of the Future and Esther's notebooks are very, very well known, very, very popular in France. And so far, the Esther's notebooks, 2 of them have been translated to English. A third one should be coming out in January of this year, 2022. And I'm not really sure what the schedule is after that. I'm always fascinated by translation anyway. How did they, I read it in French, and then I go through and have a look at it in the English, and I think, how did you get exactly that? Like what was, the gist is always right, but it's kind of interesting how sometimes things are wrong. Look, here's this, she's 10 years old, but you might not want to give this to your 10-year-old. There's someone insulting someone else, a homophobic slur, because that's what happened in her school, one time. So you have to think to yourself about, well, you don't have to think to yourself, but my point is that this isn't necessarily something that you give to a 10-year-old, not necessarily, or that you should think about it. It is what happens to her. Me as an adult, I'm reading it, and for me it's interesting and also very cute and very funny and very sweet sometimes, but also, as I say, a little bit upsetting sometimes, disturbing. There is a bit of bullying. She's just a normal kid. Sometimes she's the one who does the bullying, and she tells you the story as if it's like a normal, okay thing, and you're going, wait, you said what? You shouldn't have said that. That's terrible. It's it's very interesting. The cartoonist is not saying to her, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say that, or you've got that wrong. Or maybe he is, but what he's doing for us is just recording it. He's just recording it. We're getting inside the head of this young girl. And as she gets a little bit older, she gets a little bit more, you know, the sexual harassment starts. Whether on the street in Paris, she's in, sorry, I don't think I mentioned, but she's in Paris. And yeah, she faces all kinds of stuff like that in her life. Her real name is not Esther. They've changed it. She's sort of a question, who's the real Esther? Anyway, I really, really recommend these. If you can read them in French, that's great. But if you can't, there are already 2 volumes in English, and there'll be, as I say, I know a 3rd is coming out very shortly. And they're really great. And it's not just for kids. It's really very cute, very sweet, and really, really interesting. All right, so that's Esther's Notebooks by Sattouf.